Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to the beginning of a new series that is me holding myself accountable for my 2021 reading goals. I tried to set this goal last year and I failed, but I want to read one serious nonfiction book a month. This is something heavier than like pop science or pop culture stuff, but when I tried it last year, nothing came of it. So I figure I'm going to make it a video series for my channel. That way I am forcing myself to do it because I need it for the content. So, for this month, my serious nonfiction was The Scientist in the Crib by Alison Gopnik, Andrew and Meltzoff, and Patricia K. Kuhl. This is a psychology book all about the psychology of babies 0 to 3 years old, how they learn, what we know about what they learn, what we know about what they know. And this is something I pretty much had to read in the month of January because we have to renew our foster care license and it requires 3 hours of group training and 3 hours of personal training. So this is my 3 hours of personal training. I picked this book off of the predetermined list that DHS gave me, and I was really interested in this book. However, this book was published in 1999 and it shows really badly. First off, it uses the R word. Now, this was also published back in a time when, while the R word might have been used as a slur, it was not widespread knowledge that it was used as a slur, and the slur had not overtaken its medical name yet. I think that wouldn't come until like around the mid-2000s, so shortly after this book was published. So I can't fault it for that. But the other iffy thing is that it refers to a mother finding out her child is autistic as a tragedy, which is not entirely the right mindset to have. It talks about autism a little bit, not a lot, and it wasn't like horribly problematic, but like it wasn't far enough away from it for my liking, if that makes any sense. In general, though, I was really only looking through this for the effects on children with trauma or from abuse, because those are the kind of kids I'm working with as a foster parent, and there wasn't a lot. There was a little bit talk about how babies learn what love looks like from their parents, and the good news is that even children that were raised in abusive homes in their early years can still learn what love looks like, can still learn what healthy love is through other adults showing them it, other caretakers. So that's heartening, you know, not that you can totally reverse or fix or whatever other words we want to use with trauma or abuse, but you can mitigate it and you can help with healing. So that was very nice. And also, I appreciated all of the emphasis on spending time with like little babies and kids, and you're actually teaching them a lot more than you think you are. There's actually a lot of things that adults do that are instinctive to us that we don't even think about doing that help to teach babies, like the way we speak to babies actually help them learn the language better. The higher pitched voice that overemphasizes words and pronunciation is actually helping babies learn. So that silly way of talking has a point. But my favorite and the weirdest part of this book is how it talks about technology. Again, published in 1999, and it keeps trying to like compare a baby's brain to a computer. And there's this whole section about how voice technology or voice activated technology is so far in the future. It's so futuristic. Think of Star Trek when they just can talk to the computer. They can't do that at all, but babies know how to recognize voices. And I'm just like sitting there with the book open and I glance over at my Alexa. Oh, 1990s. It was really funny to me. Just this idea of like the 1990s experts being like, this is all so futuristic. And I guess, yeah, it did take like, what would we say, at least a decade, if not longer, for voice technology to actively be useful for like commercial use. So I guess in a way it was fairly futuristic. It's just really amusing. In general, if I had been doing like a research assignment when I was, say, in college getting my history degree for this, I could not have even used this as a secondary source, because when I was in school, your secondary sources had to be a maximum of 5 years old. So like if they were published any long ago than 5 years prior, they were no good. And obviously this was published, you know, over 2 decades ago. So using this as a secondary source for psychology would not have been an option. However, you could have used it as a primary source for 90s and early 2000s psychology. So, you can use any book if you just twist it in a certain way. But in general, I am glad I read this, mostly because I got my foster care license renewed, which, what's the point of it? And I'm probably going to continue to read books to renew it. I'm just hoping that there's other books that I can find that deal more directly with trauma. I tried looking for some of the other books on trauma on the list from my library, and my library had next to none of them, which is weird. I usually don't have that problem with my library. So I might just end up having to buy books. But I also have the rest of the year to do these things. Maybe I can pre-train for the next license renewal next year. But in general, I enjoyed the fact that I at least got the book read. It was a little bit of a slog at times, especially with all of those, let's make all these technology references, and they were also putting a lot of old-fashioned philosophy, and a lot of the philosophical problems seemed so entirely made up. Everyone's oh, how do children not see humans as walking meat bags that make sounds? Why would they? Why would they see humans as walking meat bags that make sounds? That feels like a philosopher just sat around, came up with that problem, and then had to find a solution to that problem when no one else was thinking that was a problem. But a lot of that, philosophers spent too much time thinking about things, got too meta, and then had to find reasons to bring themselves back down to earth. And now the scientists got in on it. But I did really like all of the descriptions on the different ways they found to test babies, because obviously you can't ask babies what they know. So using things that pacifiers that once the babies would suck on it, it would turn something on so they could figure out how often it could keep the baby's attention based on how long they sucked on the pacifier, or judging what they were interested in based on where they looked, that kind of stuff. That was really cool. So the scientific process was awesome. I just would love to see an updated version of it for today's baby. And I was actually talking to my worker about it, our personal support worker that does all of our paperwork for the license renewal. And I was like, this book is kind of old comparatively. And she goes, you want to know the really sad thing? That list is the updated list. So apparently, not too long ago, the list of pre-approved DHS books was from even farther back. So I might have to start looking up some of my own sources. If you know any, especially books on kids in trauma, or anything, especially on Black kids in the foster, or members of any people of color community in the foster care system, because I've tried to look for that kind of thing from a foster care perspective, and I can only ever find transracial adoption stuff. I would love to find when they are still actively in the foster system stuff, considering the fact that, we've only had 3 placements so far, and 2 of them have been Black, so this is something that I am definitely going to be working with a lot in the future, and I'd like to get more on top of that. So definitely, any recommendations you have, would 100% want them. But regardless, got this one done for the month. I have a couple ideas for the one I'm going to read for February, and I'm excited for them as well. Not excited in a happy sense, because if I pick what I want to, it's going to be a very heavy and probably depressing read, but a very necessary, heavy, and depressing read. But I'm excited to learn more, if nothing else. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.